So, I'm going to speak about Sweden and Finland, how the security jigsaw puzzle might finally be solved in this region. Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine has acted as a catalytic agent, revitalizing cooperation and unity within both European Union and NATO. And it has also led to fast geopolitical changes. All of a sudden, Swedish and Finnish NATO membership became a real possibility after more than 70 years of taking a neutral approach towards the Kremlin. Support for NATO membership among the population has surged this spring to a record high in both countries. In early May, no less than 76% of the Finnish respondents in an YLE poll were in favor of joining NATO, 12% were against, and 11% were undecided. Sweden still falls behind Finland, but support for Swedish NATO membership has nevertheless increased to about 60%, according to a survey presented by Demoscope yesterday. The NATO debate in Sweden has revealed that there is a widespread opinion that we need more time for reflection or a deeper analysis about what NATO membership actually means. But this is a false perception. Two reports written by two former Swedish ambassadors, Tomas and Christer Bringeus, are central to the informed NATO debate in Sweden and deserve some of our attention here. The Bertelman report from October 2014 concluded that the restrictions taking into account sovereignty and freedom of action set a limit on the deepening of defense cooperation. But simultaneously, Swedish international defense cooperation combined with our own declaration of solidarity has brought us so close that we hardly could avoid being identified with NATO, without getting neither the effect of the cooperation nor the solidarity protection that the NATO membership would entail. And then in September 2016, the government appointed inquiry on Sweden's international defense and security cooperation, led by Christer Bringeus, presented its final report, Security in a New Era. The key observation of the Bringeus inquiry was that in all likelihood, Sweden would be drawn into a possible Russian-Baltic military conflict at an early stage through what might be called consequential aggression. The reasons were of a political, humanitarian, and military geographical nature. A serious crisis in the Baltic Sea region would engage both the EU and NATO. On its own, Sweden would find it difficult to organize a reception of the refugee flows that would probably be the result of an attack against the Baltic countries. And in addition, access to Swedish territory would be of military operational importance to both the attacking and the defending parties in a given conflict. Although this inquiry observed that a Russian military attack against one or more of the Baltic states were improbable for the time being, it nevertheless stated that the actions of the Russian leadership were characterized by unpredictability, what we have seen the results of this year. But leaving the Swedish and Finnish perspectives behind, what would possibly change if Sweden and Finland became members of NATO in the eyes of others? Starting with Russia then. The pieces of the European security puzzle have been thrown to the four winds by the Russian state. And Finland and Sweden, in this regard, are among the first to determine their own rightful place in this new European security picture. Finnish and Swedish membership in NATO would send a clear message to Russia. It is being punished for its war against Ukraine and faces the consequence it is seeking to avoid. The right to self-determination is for all democratic societies, not just for great powers. The problem for those who argue that the destabilization effect of NATO enlargement is that the responsibility for this rests no other place than in Moscow. Swedish and Finnish NATO membership would probably increase tension with Kremlin in the short run, but both states will, provided different measures of reassurance related to foreign bases nuclear weapons in peacetime, as Norway has already done. As for NATO members, acceptance of two new members would be a geopolitical game changer. It would strengthen NATO's deterrence and defense by adding two democratic, wealthy, and relatively strong military countries in a strategically vital region to the alliance. If Sweden and Finland so far have not been able to count on NATO's Article 5 defense guarantee, in spite of the close cooperation, NATO, for its part, has not been able to count on Swedish and Finnish availability in a crisis. And the time now shows that informal arrangements are insufficient when their threat level is high and the underlying order has fallen. More specifically, Swedish and Finnish membership in the NATO would have both political and military consequences for the organization and for its role in European security and politics. Starting with the political impact, by joining NATO, Sweden and Finland would again demonstrate that NATO's role in ensuring Europe's territorial defenses is absolutely crucial, while also reaffirming the security benefits of a strong transatlantic link. The cautious approach of European powers clearly shows the difference in value between any military alliance led by the United States compared to whatever Article 42.7 of the EU Treaty may mean. The United States stands out as clearly and unambiguously the leader for the free world. Nevertheless, Swedish and Finnish membership would reinforce the European pillar within NATO. Both countries are proponents of developing the EU's defense and security dimension and of strengthening transatlantic ties, including the important security relationship with the United Kingdom. While NATO will remain the primary guarantor of territorial defense, the EU would become an increasingly important security alliance, and coordination between the two will deepen. However, it would be more a question of division of work than of overlapping activities between NATO and the EU. Furthermore, Finnish and Swedish membership would strengthen the eastern flank countries' caucus in NATO for years to come, even when the effects of the current Russian invasion of Ukraine fades away. Sweden and Finland would be able to contribute to critical discussions on relations with Russia in NATO. Another change in equilibrium might be an increased political weight for NATO's northern flank, giving it more of a regional touch with a new Nordic group of like-minded countries with democratic stability. Militarily then, the accession of both countries would raise the level of security in the Baltic Sea region and in the High North. Currently, the northern region is characterized by a strategic gap. But with Finland and Sweden in NATO, all 5 NATO countries would be unified in a capable defense community, providing mutual defense guarantees as well as a strategic depth that will improve the security and ability to defend the Arctic, the Nordic, and the Baltic regions collectively. Guaranteed access to Finnish and Swedish territory in a crisis would ease concerns about reinforcing the Baltic states and reduce the chances of a successful Russian attack. And it's not only the island of Gotland that could serve as an advanced base for defending the Baltic states. The war in Ukraine shows that although Russia commands ample deep strike weapons, it has problems designating targets beyond the immediate rear of the front line. Placing NATO's own aircraft, drones, and deep strike assets into disguised bases in the rear would protect them from Russian intelligence and enable their operations over the Baltics. There are hardly better place to hide these systems than in the Scandinavian woodlands. And as a mirror image, NATO membership would prevent Russia from taking advantage of Swedish and Finnish non-alignment status by attempting to use parts of our territories to conduct military operations against NATO allies. As for the military value, Sweden and Finland are complementary in terms of military resources. Sweden leads when it comes to air defense and maritime security, and Finland, a country with mandatory military service when it comes to land defense. Taken together, the Nordic states' collective air power will, in a couple of years, contain of 150 F-35 combined aircraft and 72 operational Swedish JAS Gripen fighter jets. And if we add Great Britain, Germany, and the Netherlands, Northern Europe will have almost 250 to 300 F-35 plus JAS Gripen. This would create a robust regime of deterrence in NATO's northern flank. It will also improve NATO's ability to protect the transatlantic maritime link in the Northern Atlantic against the Russian anti-access strategy. This is crucial in ensuring that US reinforcement can reach Europe in the event of a massive crisis. Other resources of interest are, for instance, Sweden's Patriot systems and maybe our naval fleet, which might contribute to NATO sea power in the southern part of the Baltic Sea. The way Ukraine is fighting Russia is also a validation of Finnish or Scandinavian military thought. Integrating them, Sweden and Finland, into NATO and institutionalize military cooperation would therefore be of mutual benefit. In particular, Finnish total defense concepts have been a role model for other NATO states, and most recently, Ukraine, in how to organize territorial defense forces and civil military cooperation in resisting an aggressor. Central Europe, which has been at the forefront of the war, could benefit from the unique set of assets and capabilities that Sweden and Finland would bring to the alliance. Both states have advanced defense capabilities that are already highly interoperable with NATO forces, even more so than some of the former Warsaw Pact states that are currently members of the alliance. So, to conclude, the European security order, as we knew it after the Cold War, is not only damaged, but is gone. When trust was broken after Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, it was still considered as repairable, but that is no longer the case. Integrating Sweden and Finland in NATO would significantly boost military capability on the northern flank and bring more of Europe's population under NATO's protective umbrella against an unreliable neighbor like Russia. That would be a win-win. It will also make it easier to find the right division of work between NATO and the EU, allowing the latter to focus on capability development, but otherwise leave hard security to NATO. These complementary functions would substantiate the motto of NATO to survive, EU to thrive. Thank you.